Welcome, I'm Rabbi Phil Bressler of Beit Am in Corvallis, Oregon, and this is the daily summary video for the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Yomi Daily Halakha Learning Project, covering the passage from Sivan 95, Seif 1 to Sivan 95, Seif 11. You can find links to the Hebrew and English text of this passage and to the calendar of upcoming passages in this video's description. So we have a new concept today, a different kind of eruv, a different kind of mixing, which is eruv techumim. So the idea of tichum, a boundary limit on Shabbat and Yom Tov, has been mentioned several times in passing, and we'll give it a more full treatment here. So this idea that there is a limit to the distance you can walk on Shabbat is based on Exodus chapter 16, verse 29, which says, "Let everyone remain in place, let no one leave the vicinity on the seventh day." So from the place that you are when Shabbat begins, which is the point where you acquire shvita, which is dwelling, that is your dwelling place on Shabbat, you have a limit of 2,000 amot in any direction. So basically you have a circle with you at the center with a radius of 2,000 amot, so a total diameter of 4,000 amot. Remember, an amot is a cubit. It's about the length from your elbow to the tip of your middle finger. The personal space that you occupy, personal space is defined halachically as a four amot bubble, so that doesn't actually count. So technically, I think the limit is 2,004 amot really, but we're just going to call it 2,000. This applies only if you start Shabbat in open country. If you are in a city at twilight when Shabbat begins, the whole city is considered your place of residence. There's an additional halachic buffer called karpef that extends beyond the last building that makes up a city, a distance of 70 and 2/3 amot. So you start counting up to your 2,000 once you leave the city, which is your place of residence. That's when you start counting, and actually only beyond the end of that karpef. So a total of 2,074 and 2/3 amot, I think, would be the total you could do. You can therefore basically walk all around in a very large city, even on Shabbat, without concern, even if the distance is much more than 2,000 amot. It's all one place. Only cities get that karpef buffer. If you start inside an isolated house, for example, the house is your residence, doesn't count towards your 2,000, but once you leave it, the measurement starts from the wall of your house. If you have two adjacent cities, if the distance between them is less than 2 karpef enclosures, so about 140 amot, they're considered to be one contiguous city. Now, 2,000 amot is still not very far. How do you go further than that when you need to? And we'll talk tomorrow about what constitutes a valid need for this. You do it with a device called eruv techumim. So you follow a similar process to eruv chatzerot. You set up some food, enough bread for 2 meals, or enough side dishes to be eaten with bread for 2 meals. You make a bracha and state your intention that this is going to be your place of residence and enable you to walk, to adjust your Shabbat boundary. This eruv basically serves to establish your shvita, your dwelling, at the outset of Shabbat, regardless of whether or not you are actually there at twilight. It effectively moves the center of your circle for you. So here's some examples for how this will work. Say your house is in the open country. You go and you set up your eruv techumim 2,000 amot away from your house in the direction that you want to head on Shabbat, say east from your house. Go back home, start your Shabbat, do your candles and all that kind of stuff. Your house is now on the western edge of your circle, because remember your circle, the center of your circle is 2,000 amot east, so you're on the western edge. You can now walk 4,000 amot straight from your house past your eruv to reach your destination. Say you live in a city. What you do is you set up your eruv techumim within 2,000 amot of your city, so within the boundary limit from your city, plus the karpef, of course, in the direction you want to head out from your city on Shabbat. Again, say to the east. Start your Shabbat at home, in town. You can now walk outside your city. Because your city is within 2,000 amot of your eruv, all of it is. So basically, you can go from wherever you are in the city. You can now walk outside your city a distance of 4,000 amot eastward past your eruv to reach your destination again. It also works the other way around. Say you live just outside of town. You can do the same thing in the same spot to gain access the other direction to your city. Like the Eruv Chatzerot, you can have it last multiple Shabbatot as long as the food stays good. You can have an adult um, emissary set it up for you. It doesn't even have to, that the person doesn't even have to return to tell you that they were successful. We just assume that they did it. So you can have someone do it for you on their way out of town, for example, on Friday. If they're heading to their town to get home for Shabbat, you can just say, hey, set up an Eruv for me and enable them to do that. And then you can go visit them on Shabbat. One Eruv can work for multiple people. You just multiply the amount of food that you use. It does have to be all co-owned by the participants, though. Don't do it without someone's consent, though. If they don't know about it, that could cause problems if they start heading in the other direction. And finally, the food has to be stored in an accessible place. That includes being accessible without doing any sort of milacha. So don't, bury it, for example. That's all for today. As always, our learning is dedicated to Rabbi Shlomo Gansfried, the author of the Kitzur, and the historic Jewish community of Uzhhorod, Ukraine. See you tomorrow.